Q1 of 2025 has flown by, so let's talk about the books I read this quarter. If you want to keep up with what I'm reading, you can follow me on Storygraph, where I record all the books that I'm reading and, I give my little reviews there. But let's talk about them. In the description down below, I'm going to put 3 of the books that I read for you to pick up. You can get them from those links, or you can get them from your local library. Let's talk about the books I read in Q1. First up, Anime, A Critical Introduction by Denison. I won't speak too long on this one because I've made a video on this, or at least I spoke about this book in a previous video. This book, really good if you're studying animation, if you're studying film or writing, anything like that, really great. If you're just a passive watcher of anime and you want to, just read a book about anime, maybe not for you. It's a very academic book. So if you're into reading academic texts, yes. If you're not into reading academic texts, maybe not. It wasn't the best book for me because I just don't want to read an academic book on anime. There are other books I would rather read on anime. Miyazaki World is one which is quite good. It's about Hayao Miyazaki, and it's not very academically done, but it's very clearly done by someone who is an academic. But this is more so for probably if you want to quote this in an essay or a paper. The Lives of Others by Neil Mukherjee. This is a critically acclaimed book and I did not like it. Again, I've spoken about this in a previous video, but trigger warning. I'm going to put a thing saying trigger warning as I'm speaking about this. Incest and forced incest at times. No, don't like it. Not good. Don't know why it was necessary for the story. It actually wasn't necessary for the story. You could have still had similar themes without there being the incest and other things. And then there was half of the book was interesting and the other half was about the family dynamic and the incest, and I was again, similar themes would have been still compelling. You didn't need the incest. I didn't like this book. How to Blow Up a Pipeline by Andreas Malm, however, I enjoyed. I think this is a good book. If you're not someone who's read Andreas Malm like me, this is a good place to start. It's a very compelling book, very informative, and and there's also a movie. I don't know how close the movie is. I think it's called the same thing. I think it does follow Andreas Malm as well, so it'd be a good read for you to pick up. Very good book, very interesting read, and even if you're not really about climate change and climate protests and stuff, still very interesting to talk about kind of protest and the role that direct action and violent direct action probably plays in revolution and fighting against oppression. So very, very interesting book. Highly recommend it. Selected Writings and Speeches of Marcus Garvey. Number 1, I gotta step up my hater game. Marcus Garvey is just a hater, especially when it comes to Du Bois. But also, it's interesting because some of the things that Marcus Garvey was saying when he wrote this, there were still people using the points he raised. Obviously, Marcus Garvey, Du Bois, Booker T. Washington, maybe earlier, they were very much the inspirations for many of the big civil rights activists we saw around the 1960s civil rights movement. Even the likes of Malcolm X, his parents were kind of devotees of Booker T. Washington and Marcus Garvey, or then you have other civil rights movement leaders who were influenced more so by Du Bois, and kind of the two of them having very loggerhead ideologies, and very interesting to see that. It's especially if you're someone who's interested in that period of history, who's interested in the civil rights movement and just the continued fight for equal rights, even though we have the guise of all people being equal. Clearly there were institutional issues that prove that not to be the case. And you're even seeing sort of conversations like this popping up now. I mean, at least on places like TikTok, so I don't know how actual real life that is, but you're seeing the kind of difference between Marcus Garvey ideology and Du Bois ideology happening in real time right now, again on TikTok. So is that really real life? Against the Wall, Israel's Barrier to Peace. This is actually a very interesting book because even though I think the overall messaging, it's from 2005 as well, the overall messaging is very much this liberal ideology of the two people can coexist side by side in two separate states, and the two-state solution that the West is trying to put onto the Palestinians is the best way forward. That's the kind of overarching ideology I think I'm getting from some of these essays, but this book is a collection of essays from people talking about apartheid, talking about like walls that we have in society that are a hindrance to peace and progression. So it's not just about Palestine, it kind of brings in other things. It kind of brings in, there's one very interesting essay on apartheid South Africa and kind of how they were trying to basically wall off black communities in South Africa into these Bantustans, and just like describing not just the politics but the logistics of building these walls, of building these Bantustans. Very interesting. There's some more prose based work in there. There's some stuff that is about like the mental walls that Israel has forced Palestinians to have to put up with, and the mental walls between like different classes and class struggle. It's a very interesting read. If you can pick it up, it'd be great. It's from 2005. I got it from Houseman's when they were doing a sale of a university lecturer's library. He donated it to them and said, you guys can sell the books, and I found it in there. So very interesting book. You might struggle to find it in physical form, but you know, I'm sure you'll find a PDF somewhere. Tales from Earthsea by Ursula K. Le Guin. What can I say? Earthsea. I love Earthsea. We love Earthsea. I'm going to be reading the final Earthsea book this month, actually, so be prepared for a bunch of videos on that. But Tales from Earthsea, really great at giving you some background and information about the world of Earthsea that might be missing, or just, you know, the history that we didn't quite have beforehand. The final story in it really setting up what seemingly is going to be the final book of Earthsea, the Other Winds. So really, like that final short story in it, I think it was Dragonfly, really was like, yes, let me go and read the next book. It really pumped me up to read the book this month. So Earthsea, love it, love Ursula. Please go and read Earthsea. Be prepared for me to make at least 2 to 3 videos about Earthsea when it comes to it. Probably at the end of April, early May. Oh, Earthsea, yes! Before we move on to the next 2 books, I want to say on Wednesday the 9th, I'm going to be basically tier ranking all the books I've spoken about in this video. So if you want to follow up and you're new to this channel, hey, subscribe and like the video and come back on Wednesday the 9th to check out the follow-up video to this, where I'm going to be tier ranking all the books I talk about in this video. Minor Detail. Minor Detail was actually the book club book of the month for the Brown Booktuber channel. This month we're reading Guards by Terry Pratchett. And so this book was kind of like a collaborative read with the members, and it was a very difficult read, I'll be honest. It was very heavy. It's like 100 pages, but it took me nearly 3 weeks to read because it was just such a heavy topic and so just heartbreaking. I actually have a full review on this for members only, so if you are interested, you can become a member and you can get the full review of the book there. But it is just like, it very much tells you just the absolute fear and terror that Palestinians must live under when under Israeli occupation, and how they have to operate to try and avoid the situations that the characters in the book see themselves in. And frankly, if you look at the news, they unfortunately can't, because that's just how the so-called state of Israel operates. Now, if you want the full review, you can check it out as a member, but it genuinely, it's not a book for the faint of heart, and is a very like, it makes you feel like that when you read it. Just no better way to describe it than that heavy, deep sigh. Finally, Dr. Socrates. This is about Brazilian footballer Socrates and kind of his influence on the game. So if you're not a football fan, I think you'd still maybe enjoy this. There's a lot of parts about the football, about the specific matches and the workings of Brazilian football. Bloody, I don't even know how to describe it to you. But genuinely really interesting book. If just some brief history on Socrates. Socrates didn't even really want to be a football player. He wanted to be a doctor, and all through his like development as a footballer, nowadays they take like kids who are promising at like 6 and they mold them into perfect footballers. This guy was just like, football's a hobby. I'm gonna sign for one of the biggest clubs I'm gonna sign for my local club in Brazil at the time, which was still a decent club. And he didn't rock up to training, he would smoke, he would drink, and still he would blow everyone out of the water. And then he finally decided to become a professional footballer after graduating as a doctor, I believe, because he wanted to play for Brazil. And then he was like a main driver behind something they call Corinthians democracy, where at the football club Corinthians, he basically was one of the driving forces for making it so the club was really player focused. Players got a say in pay rises, got a say in who was signed to the club. Maybe the democracy wasn't perfect all the time, depending who was there. And even Brazil was under a military dictatorship. I'm not spoiling it, this is stuff you can read, but he literally was like, he was the Brazil captain as well, in 1982. And he was like, I will leave Brazil if the military dictatorship doesn't give people democracy. He was also like a socialist as well at this point. He was a big Che Guevara and Fidel Castro fan at this point in his life, but he was like, at least give the people, a say in how the country's running as opposed to a military dictatorship. And guess what? The military dictatorship, even though putting forward the reforms, they then were like, actually, we don't want to do this, and they spooked a bunch of the politicians in Brazil, and so they didn't get the democracy at the time. And he was like, okay, well, I'm leaving, and he left for Italy. It was heartbreaking for the people of Brazil. And then after his playing career, he became an influential philosopher and writer, very pro left-wing politics. Lula in Brazil, he was very close with him, and unfortunately passed away early. I just gave you the whole book, but basically, if you are interested in just South American politics as well as football, or one or two of the other, genuinely a very good book to read. Like, I came for the football, I walked away with the politics. Brilliant. Very well written, very interesting. Obviously, I'm not the biggest fan of biographies. They do drag a little bit for me, so like my story graph rating was a little bit lower than maybe I'm describing it as right now, but that can be revised. I do struggle with biographies a little bit, but regardless, very interesting book, especially if you like football and South American politics, or politics in general. So, those are all the books I read in Q1. Like I said earlier, I'm going to put 3 of the books in the description down below for you to pick up, my 3 favorites most likely, or alternatively get them from your local library. And as I mentioned earlier, my members, I want to give them a massive shout out right now. Members get to be part of a book club. Members get content early. Members get special badges, get special emojis. They're going to say in the content I make. It's great, and I like that. The community, I hope there is going to keep growing and growing, and more people get involved with the extra content. It's just fun. I really like doing it. So, if you are interested in becoming a member, it's £2 a month. You can click down below or on my channel. Alternatively, if you can't become a member, thank you very much for reaching this point in the video. Hey, if you've reached this point in the video, I want you to comment Rubik's Cube. I don't know how I actually have Rubik's Cube, it's just a cube fidget toy I have there. But anyway, comment that down below to let me know you've reached this part of the video. Thank you for watching. Hey, remember to come back next week, next Wednesday. I'm going to be tier ranking all the books I mentioned in this video. But thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, share the video with a friend or family member. And hey, I hope you read a great book today.